Applying for Social Security disability is confusing and it can be a long process, and oftentimes it's not clear what Social Security looks at when deciding whether or not you meet their definition of disability. They're going to look at your medical records. They're going to look at what your doctor says you can or cannot do. But there are a few things, 4 to be exact, about you that they're going to look at, which is not necessarily obvious. And we're going to talk about those 4 things, and I'm going to tell you why they sometimes can really matter. My name is Morrell. I'm with the law firm Kaplan Morrell. We help injured, disabled workers and their families and friends get the benefits that they deserve. If you are in need of assistance because you are disabled and getting Social Security disability, give us a call. We'd love to be able to talk with you, help you, and see if we can help you on your journey. All right, so what are the things about you that Social Security looks at in determining whether or not you're disabled? Number 1, your age. It's not obvious at first, but your age is probably the single most important you factor there is in Social Security disability. The older you are, the idea is, the harder it is going to be for you to retool, retrain, or reinvent yourself to get physically or mentally easier work. If you're younger than 50, Social Security is going to figure, well, you could go back to school, you could go back and get training, you can do something to improve yourself. You're going to have to show a lot more medical evidence of disability. Older than 50, it's going to be easier to show that a disability has knocked you out of the labor market. Your education. How much schooling you've completed or have, or what sort of vocational training you've undergone is going to affect your ability to find other kinds of work. Typically, in general, people with more education are capable of doing physically easier but mentally more challenging job. And this is in general, mind you, because there's lots of heavy work that requires lots of education. Think plumbing and electrical, but you get the idea. The more education you have, the more jobs that are open to you, therefore the more disability you're going to have to show. Prior work experience. Social Security is going to look at your prior work history. One of the papers you have to fill out is where you list all the kinds of jobs you used to do in the last 20 or so years, and you have to describe how physically and mentally demanding they were. Social Security is going to look at those jobs. They're going to try to find the easiest job you ever showed that you did, and they're going to say, well, can this person go back to that job, that kind of job? And if the answer is yes, guess what? They're going to say you're not disabled. So it's really important that you properly describe those jobs, you properly describe, how they were demanding, what their demands were physically, with an eye towards truthfully showing why you wouldn't be able to do those jobs anymore. Because a judge in Social Security is going to look at the mental and physical demands of those prior jobs, not just as how you describe them, but also how those jobs generally are in the economy. And they're going to say, could you go back to that kind of work? Answer is yes, you're not going to be found disabled. Your work history. Fair or unfair, the judge is going to look at your work history. What I'm talking about is the stability of your work history. They're going to be a lot more impressed with someone who's worked year after year for 30 years, particularly if it's been for 1 or 2, maybe 3 employers. That kind of person, a judge is going to think, doesn't apply for Social Security disability unless something really knocked that person out of the labor market. If you've hopped from job to job, or if there are long or repeated gaps in your work history where you haven't worked at all, then we need to be prepared to explain why that occurred. And there's lots of valid reasons that can and should be brought to the judge's attention. For example, maybe your spouse moved around a lot because they were in the military. So your work history, you had to keep looking for different kind of work. Maybe you took time off of work to take care of a parent or a child. These are things that need to be brought to the judge's attention so that your true experience, not the judge's imagination, explains those gaps. As you can see, there are a lot of things which aren't officially factors, but are actually factors for Social Security disability. And hiring experienced law firm is going to help you prepare and be able to package your experience, your medical condition, your work history, all of that into something that Social Security disability decision makers look for. Our initial consultations are free and confidential, and they're going to give you the peace of mind when you know your rights. And with that, thank you for spending part of your day with me.